My name is Heavenly Bresser, and I am a self-taught knitter, crocheter, weaver, and also I am a hand spinner. I am going to share with you all my hand spinning journey, basically how I got started, when I got started, and how I've gone from where I've started to where I am now, professionally as a hand spinning instructor and also as a published author. So I will go ahead and get started with an introduction first. I'm going to just share with you all a little bit of background about me. So I was born here in Illinois in the city of Chicago. That is my home city, and I have never left Illinois. This is my home. I currently live in Warrenville with my husband, and I have 2 boys. And I have an 11-year-old and also a 6.5-year-old. And he will remind everyone that he has a half there. So my life here has been really calm and collected, but I will say that when I was growing up, I did not know much about yarn. I didn't know much about crocheting. I didn't know much about knitting. I actually didn't know much of, about any of those things up until my early 20s, which might be surprising to many people. So I pretty much taught myself how to crochet back in November of 2009. And this is when I went on a maternity leave when I had my older son, and I needed something to do with my hands, and it was a suggestion that my now husband had, and he said, "Hey, how about you think about doing something like crochet?" And I remember my response was, "What is crochet?" Because I was completely in the dark about yarn crafts altogether. So I purchased a book that says Teach Yourself to Crochet, and I said, sure, I guess I'll give it a shot. I bought a crochet hook, I bought yarn, and I believe I bought all of this at Hobby Lobby, and then I crocheted for the very first time based off of the instructions from a book, and I was glued to this book. I couldn't put it down, and I really enjoyed the fabric that I was making while I was crocheting. So 3 months after that time period, I figured, hey, I've done a lot of crochet. It was only 3 months, but I decided I wanted to jump into knitting. So I purchased 2 knitting needles and did the exact same thing. I purchased another book that says Teach Yourself How to Knit. And then I went ahead and taught myself how to knit. So I've been doing it ever since, and I haven't stopped, and I love both of those crafts very, very much, which pretty much segued, was a segue for me to learn a little bit more about hand spinning. I would go to a local yarn shop and help out a friend, and I was given the suggestion to try drop spindling for the very first time. And I said, what is a drop spindle? So the friend had given me the drop spindle, and she was also a local yarn shop owner at the time. And I thought, hey, I really don't think that I'm really want to do something like this right now. I think I would rather stick to knitting and stick to crocheting, because I was enjoying all of the things that I made, and I felt that I only had so much time to dedicate towards the craft. So I went ahead and grabbed the drop spindle from her, and I took it home, but I put it in a corner, and I said, oh, I'm not going to use this for now. Well, I tried it. I tried it, and I decided that it was a little difficult to try and learn, and I tried to watch YouTube videos. I tried to read books to help me with drop spindling, and at that time, and this is back in 2014, when I received that drop spindle, I could not catch on to it at that time. And I learned more things about where the errors were much later. So I put that aside for a while. 2015 rolls around, and I had seen a spinning wheel, and I said, oh, if I can't drop spindle, maybe I can just try to check out a spinning wheel and see what I can do with the spinning wheel. Well, I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know how to shop for a spinning wheel. And my husband said, hey, I see a spinning wheel on eBay. Maybe you can, you know, look at this and see if this is something you want to try. So my husband purchased a spinning wheel in Milwaukee for $35. So we took a mini road trip from Warrenville to Milwaukee and picked up the spinning wheel. And I fell in love with it. I thought it was the most adorable thing I had ever seen. And I actually just really wanted to learn how to fix it. And just repairing the wheel was more of my focus than actually learning how to spin at the time. I looked at the wheel and I thought, this is so cool. This is a piece of history. This is something that's really exciting to have, not just as decoration, but maybe one day I can learn how to use it. So I brought the wheel home, and I looked at all of the parts, and I tried to figure out some of the parts by researching on doing an internet search. And I saw that some of the pieces were rotten and falling apart, and I said, oh, you know, I'll just try and fix it. So I took the old leathers off of the treadle, which is where your foot is placed at the very bottom of the spinning wheel. I took the leather pieces that were rotting and I replaced those, so I would get the spinning wheel to actually move. Even if it wouldn't spin yarn, at least it would move properly. So I started repairing them, and then my husband started getting an eye for spinning wheels. So he, at the time, was collecting a lot of books, so he would shop at a store called Savers, and he had seen a spinning wheel that was completely taken apart and it was in a bag. So he purchased this spinning wheel for, I think it was $10. He brought it home. I know, he brought it home. It's like, really, a spinning wheel for $10? He brought it home in pieces, and it became a, you know, fixer-upper project. And from there, that would be the second wheel that I would have repaired before I even learned how to do any spinning whatsoever. Then I finally did a search online to see if I could find a local spinning guild. The local spinning guild happened to meet in Warrenville, Illinois. Ta-da! As if it was meant to be. So I went to one of the meetings, and I talked to some of the ladies, and they were really, really, really nice, and they were very helpful. They told me that my fixes were legitimate. They weren't terrible, and they had hopes that the wheels could possibly work at some point. And then I attended the meeting, and then I decided, you know, even if I don't know how to use these spinning wheels just yet, maybe I should look into buying a modern spinning wheel. So I kind of jumped the gun and decided I was going to go to a fiber shop. I went to a fiber shop it's only an hour or 15 minutes from here, and I purchased a spinning wheel from that fiber shop. And the shop is called The Fold. I was drawing a blank. The shop is called The Fold, and Tony Neal is the owner. I ended up buying a Lindrum double treadle from her, and what happened was I tried out several different wheels at a time, and she allowed that, which is nice. So you get to test drive them before you decide, you know, if you want to purchase one. Well, there was already fiber at the wheel, so you can just sit and just grab some more fiber and just spin. Well. I sat at the wheel. I sat at different ones, and I sat at one particular one, and I fell in love with it. And I spun as if I had always spun before. This doesn't normally happen this way, but I was able to treadle and move my feet, and also draft and let the fiber go right into the wheel without any troubles, as if I had done it since I was a child or something. So I said, hey, if this is how this works, I think I can really do this. So I went ahead and purchased the spinning wheel from her. And then I had brought it home. And from there, I had spun every single day for at least a year. I had spun every single day. And I have spun different types of yarn. And I have some examples to show of the different types of yarns that I spin and have spun. I spin really big, chunky, or super bulky art yarn that has locks straight from the sheep. So if you look closely, it's just one strand, but it's really curly and artsy looking. I've spun things that are really fine, and this one is a 2-ply, fine and sparkly. I've spun everything in between also. So this is also a chunky, but then this one is a worsted, and this is also straight from sheep's wool. This is another one that's bulky, but it's from a particular sheep breed. This one is more of a DK weight, and this is alpaca. And speaking of alpaca, for that very first year, I spent the majority of the time doing what I call barters. I bartered with a lot of farmers, and I had participated in online groups where you would receive a large amount of fiber, and you learn to process it yourself. And you will keep half of it, and then you'll spin the rest for the farmer, whoever sent you the fiber. So I learned a lot in that first year of how to process my own fibers and how to spin different types of fibers using my spinning wheel, and learning what types, the right setup for, each fiber and things like that. So that was an interesting experience to do the bartering, and I think it was a lot of fun. Because it gave me tons and tons of practice with different fibers. And it also helped me to get to learn and know the farmers that are near this area. And also I got a chance to learn farmers that are in other states and know more about their farm and what they do. So it helped me expand my knowledge as far as hand spinning is concerned. So that was a lot of fun. So that was my first year. After that is when I started entering into hand spinning competitions. So I would spin yarn, and I would bring my yarn to a fiber festival and enter it into a competition. So the first time I entered my yarn into a competition, I won a 2nd place ribbon in the experience class. I'm like, I'm a beginner. They threw me into the experience class, which is totally fine, but I got a 2nd place ribbon, which is pretty cool. And the most recent competition I had entered, which was at the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival, I received 5 first place ribbons and the best in show for my hand spun skeins, all different categories: art yarn, thin yarns, thick yarns, somewhere in between. But after having experienced some of those types of things with the competitions, I figured, hey, I will start teaching people how to do this. It would be cool to share with others. So I started with my local guild that meets in Warrenville. And I pretty much was nominated every year to teach something. They're like, why don't you teach? Why don't you teach that? Why don't you teach this? And I would say, sure. So our guild had over 25 people or so. And I had a lot of experience with teaching larger groups that way because kind of get thrown into the middle of it. When you have so many people, you have to get used to having a huge group. So I enjoyed that very, very, very much. And I kept getting asked to teach again. So I figured I would expand and see if I could apply for some local shows such as YarnCon. So I have taught at YarnCon Chicago. This would have been my 3rd year if COVID-19 didn't happen. This would have been my 3rd year teaching with YarnCon. And then after YarnCon, the first year of YarnCon, I applied to teach for Stitches events, and I began teaching with Stitches as their hand spinning instructor. So it has been a blast, to say the least. It has been a blast. I've been to Salt Lake City to teach, as well as California. I went to the most recent Stitches West event, and that was a lot of fun. And I can't say anything else, but I love it so much. I can't stop doing it. So right behind me, you'll see all of the things that I'm pretty much talking about. So I have fleeces that I work from. So I would take the fleece, then I will wash it, and then I will process it with different tools, and then I would spin it right onto my wheel. I also have some that I have already processed. It's right behind me. I'm not sure if it's clear enough here, but in this bucket here is big floofy stuff. It's straight from fleece. So I have already washed it, and I allowed it to dry, and then I used different tools such as wool combs and a tool called a hackle to be able to make big floofy puff. And then after that, when I spin it, it looks something like this on my bobbin when I spin it. So this is what one single looks like. So that's what I do. I spend my time doing all of this fun stuff. And then if that's not enough for me, I decide that I'm going to dye fibers. So my most recent, see if I can reach this. One of my most recent things that I dyed in fiber form is Shetland rose fiber. So it's purple, it's browns and pinks, and more browns. So I love the dye process as well as the spinning process. So it is possible to dye your fibers before you process, or you can choose to dye them after you process them. So after you've washed them and after you've combed or carded them, you can dye them afterwards too. So that is part of what I do as well. I have an example of something that I have done that's straight from sheep. So this is from a sheep's fleece, and it's called a hap. It's a big square. It's a huge square. But I did keep the natural colors all on the inside, and this is all my hand spun. So let you guys see it up close. Probably helps. This is what it looks like up close. The gray section that you see in there is all natural from the sheep's fleece, and this is also all natural, this section here. The outer section where it's pink and then this raspberry is what I dyed, and then I went back to the natural colors here. So this was a labor of love for sure. This is a labor of love for sure. I'm going to show you all some pictures of what some of these things look like. See if I can show you. This is Coopworth fleece. This is what the fleece looks like after it's washed. And even after it's washed, sometimes it can look yellow. And you could see sometimes little specks of things. We call that vegetation matter. Also, see here, this one, it has a lot of browns and grays, and that's also sheep's wool. And that crimpy part kind of looks like a French fry almost. When you see that in the fleece, it lets you know how bouncy the yarn can be after you spin it. So before you process it, you can actually look at a fleece and see what the characteristic would be like before you decide to spin it. So that is one picture there. And, uh-oh, I think I turned myself sideways. Hold on. I think I have some more to share too. Give me 1 minute. I'm already here. As far as spinning wheels are concerned, I have quite a collection, of spinning wheels. This is one picture of what my spinning wheels look like. And you can see they're all different types. It's me in the center being a little excited about having a lot of spinning wheels. But they are all different types. And the one, let's see if I can tap it. All right, the one here is the one that I mentioned earlier that I purchased from the local fiber shop. And that is my favorite one for teaching because it actually folds. And it is more of a modern wheel. So there are different attachments for it so that I can spin the different varieties of yarn types. So I could spin really chunky yarn, super bulky, all the way down to really, really, really fine lace or even gossamer thread. Some of these are, whoopsie, let's see, lost my cursor there, or my pen there, hold on. This one here is actually from Sweden. I purchased this one at a flea market, and it is believed to be around the time frame in the early 1800s. And this one was found at the Kane County Flea Market. So I fixed it up and it spins today. Let's see. The other ones, some of the spinning wheels, the conditions were pretty awful when I first got them. So I had to get some extra reinforcements with wood turners so that I can get a treadle made at the bottom. So I'm trying to see if I can, the cursor's not working. Uh-oh, hold on a second. Let's see. This wheel here, circled in yellow, it's missing the little bottom section, and it's called a treadle. And I had it, but it was cracked. And I had to send that one out to a wood turner in Iowa so that he could fix it. And now that one works as well. And some other ones had problems, but they're all fixed now. And then there's a cute little one in the corner. This one is more modern. The one that looks like an owl. My little cursor is not working. Let's see. The one in the corner here is an owl. And that one is portable as well. It completely comes apart and it can actually go, it can fit into a carry-on. So that one is easy to travel with. So the folding ones are considered travel wheels. The other ones that you're seeing in the photo are either vintage or antique wheels. Those do not fold. They're not very compact, except the one that is right next to the teal one in the center. It's kind of small and you can take some of the parts off of it, but none of those will actually fold and go anywhere. But to date, I have 21 wheels, I believe now. So this picture is a little bit older, and I do have a lot of wheels. I have 2 great wheels or walking wheels that are not shown in that photo. I pretty much have become the rescue spinning wheel lady, where people send me a message and say, hey, there's a spinning wheel someone's getting rid of and they're saying they're going to burn it or they're going to throw it away or they're going to take it apart. And I'm like, no, let's save the wheel. So I decide to bring it on in and make a new home for it. And so that's pretty much what I do with the spinning wheels. I do repair them when they come, and if it's something that's beyond my current expertise, so to speak, I would send it out to someone else to help with the restoration process. But I also do research on the wheels that I have to make sure I have the accurate information historically. Some of those wheels are marked, while some of them are not. And it's nice when there is a maker's mark that maker's mark can be a hand stamped mark on the wheel that is just a couple of initials. It could actually be a full name. So that gives me an idea of where that wheel came from and who actually did the work on the wheel, who actually made it in the first place. Some of these wheels have traveled pretty far, as you probably could guess with the one from Sweden. That particular wheel actually has two wheels on the wheel. So it has two drive wheels, as they call it, and it is called an accelerator wheel. I also have another wheel that is very similar to that one, but it's called a chair wheel, and that one is from Connecticut, and it has two drive wheels, so two of those wheels, but they're, instead of side by side, they're actually on, they're vertically aligned. So what those wheels tend to do is to spin, allow the yarn to be spun very quickly and very finely. So there are limitations with the different types of wheels. So it's nice to have the variety. If I really want to spin something very, very fine, I don't have to take my modern wheel and change all of the settings for that. I can just use one of my other wheels that is already made for that. So it's nice to have the option to use those different wheels for what they're really good at. And the great wheel is really good for spinning cotton. And also there is another type of wheel. It's very similar to a great wheel. It is a Sharka. And let's see, here's a photo of me spinning on the Sharka. This one stays in my bedroom mostly. But the drive wheel is actually flat and it's in a box. So it is a spinning wheel technically, but it's in a box. So that it can fold and you can travel with that one. And if you see on the, let's see if I can orient this a little differently. I'm spinning yellow cotton on here. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Right off the tip of that spindle is where the twist is going, and it starts to increase the more that my right hand turns. It looks like a little dial, but it's turning a little knob that sits on top of the wheel. So as long as I'm turning and turning and turning and turning, the spindle starts to rotate and keeps spinning around and spinning around, and that allows me to put plenty of twist into cotton. And in order to spin cotton, you must use enough twist for it to hold together because it's very short stapled fiber. So Sharkas are good for spinning cotton. They're good for spinning shorter fibers. So that's that. Let's see what else. As far as the wheels are concerned, they all have different type. They all have their limitations, so to speak. I would say the modern wheels, the ones that fold, the ones that have different attachments so that you can spin from really fine to really bulky yarns, their limitations are much smaller because you have a greater capacity there. It's the older wheels that have their limitations because of the types of yarns that you can spin on them is based on how that wheel is set up. And they weren't made to have different attachments. They were really good at spinning flax. So most of them are termed flax wheels. So they are really cool and interesting, and they're really fun to play on and learn more about. So that's pretty much what I do when I am not teaching, is repairing spinning wheels and also dyeing with dyeing fibers and also dyeing yarn for myself as well. So let's see. I am going to make sure you have enough time to show you all some demonstration on, I'll show you all a demonstration on how to spin on my modern wheel. And while I'm setting up for that, Paul and Jen, if you want to open it up for questions, we can do that at the same time, because it's fine to talk at the same time.
Sure thing. Let me start reading some people and we can start asking some questions. All right. So I muted everyone. If anyone wants to just ask Heavenly a question, go right ahead. No questions from the audience. That's okay.
That's
totally fine.
no worries. Alrighty.
Paul, would you like to spotlight Heavenly so that the focus doesn't shift off of her when somebody else talks?
Oh, yes. So if that's happening, what you can do, if you see her window at the top, there's 3 little dots. Click that and click pin video. So then you'll just see Heavenly the whole time, no matter who's talking.
All right, just take a second, put this drive band on. I thought I had I had a limit to how many wheels I would get, and I had seen a wheel this weekend. I had to say no to. I'm like, no, don't do it. I'm like, don't do it. There are so many wheels in our immediate area that are listed on eBay. They're listed on Craigslist. They're listed on Facebook Marketplace. There are so many wheels listed for sale because a lot of people just keep them for decoration, or if a family member, say a grandmother or someone in the family that had spun, had passed away or something like that, you sometimes will see listings for spinning wheels show up online, or even at estate sales and flea markets like I mentioned before. So what I'm going to spin is this. This is Shetland. And this is actually from the UK. It's not processed by me. This is commercially processed. And the fibers are all straight. And when they're all straight and aligned like this, it is called comb top. So this is commercial comb top, not hand combed top, to clarify the difference. Now, if they were not parallel like this, and they were disorganized and not straight, that would be called roving. So use comb top for now. Let me see if I can change my angle a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. Let's see here, hold on. My lighting's not too bright here. Right, hopefully you guys can see that okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so with this spinning wheel, this is the Lindrum that I purchased locally, my first major purchase. And this one has 2 treadles. You can't see, hold on. Let's see if I can allow you to see down here. And that's better, I think. See where my feet go? Mm-hmm. Down here and here. There's 2. You'll be able to see my hands. All right. So when you're ready to spin, you have a bobbin, and this is the bobbin up here, top here, and this is the flyer on this wheel. The bobbin needs to have some sort of leader, is what they call it. And you want to attach the leader to the bobbin. So when the leader is attached to the bobbin, it's basically just spare yarn or cotton, crochet cotton or something like that. So you would use something like that to get started. and it's already, you know, commercial yarn. I like to use crochet cotton from, it's like, I don't know what size it is. I wanted to say it's Lydia's crochet cotton that you can get at the craft stores. So I make my leaders with the loop so that I can insert the fiber right in the middle of the loop here, like that. Okay. And when you treadle, the spinning wheel starts to turn in either direction you're treadling. So you're treadling, and it'll either turn to the right, or you can have it turn to the left. And it's really just controlling your legs. But that's basically the basics for spinning, is learning to control the wheel so it's going in one direction. So when you start to turn, once you allow the flyer and bobbin to start moving and you're treadling with your feet, it's going to twist the leader. So there's a lot of twist goes here, and it slowly starts to travel into your fiber. So you want the fiber to go in, and you're holding the fiber supply in a different hand. So you're gonna go forward like that. And there's different types of drafts, but this one is just a short forward, because I'm pinching forward and sliding down with one hand. And my back hand isn't moving at all. I'm doing this kind of slow so you can see, hopefully. Pinching forward, sliding down. And when you're done, your bobbin will be full. So you wouldn't just have this little bit here, but you would spin. And then some wheels have it so that you can actually move a slider hook. Was that a question? Yep. You can move the slider hook up or down, and that'll help you fill your bobbin. But once you're done spinning, your bobbin will look something like the bobbin I had showed earlier, like this. So this one is actually pretty packed. Like the yarn is kind of past the edge of the ends of the bobbin. So this is just a singles yarn here, and you can spin more than one bobbin, and you can take a third bobbin that's empty, and you can take the two bobbins that you have spun already and put those together by spinning in the opposite direction than you started with the first two. So that's how it is to spin on the wheel. It's pretty straightforward. The only thing about it is that you're getting used to your feet moving, and you're also moving your hands at the same time. And again, if you were to try spinning with the wheel first, you want to practice moving your feet and not really drafting yet. It's just so much easier to get the motion down with your feet first. And I kind of want to compare it to playing a piano where you learn chords. At least when I taught myself how to play piano, I started teaching myself how to play the chords first, because I felt like that was really awkward for my hands. So I started learning the chords so I didn't have to think about it. And then I started playing the other notes with my right hand. So now I don't have to think about what my feet are doing. I'm focusing more on what I'm doing with my hands. So if I don't want to spin this thin anymore, I can, let's see, I've spun down there. If I don't want to spin this really thin anymore, I can grab more fiber from the back hand so that I have big, thicker yarn. So I will just pull larger chunks from this area here, about as thick as I want it. So if I want it really thick, just let the twist go in and push it forward so I have thicker yarn than before. Hopefully you all can see it's thicker than before. So here's the thicker section. Move on down to get to the thinner stuff. Thinner stuff is, this is the thinner section where I first started. So thinner, and then when you take it apart, you'll see like once this starts to settle, you'll see it loosens. Look how thick it is there. In order to keep the twist that you have already put into your yarn, and in order to finish the yarn, you'll want to soak it or steam it. That way you won't lose all of this twist when you're ready to knit with it. And it also redistributes the twist. So if you have thinner spots or thicker spots, it'll move the twist and distribute it a little bit better along the length of the yarn. So finishing the yarn is something that is very essential to spinning it. And when you're ready to use it for, whether it's for knitting, whether it's for crochet or even weaving. So that is that with the wheel. Then I have drop spindles. Let's see here. I have support spindles too that I use. And actually I have a nice collection of those at the moment. But I have drop spindles, and I think it's probably easier to show these than it is to show the support spindling on video. This one is a slower drop spindle. It's a little bit heavier. It spins slower, so I can actually spin thicker yarn on this with no problems at all. Thinner, or a smaller drop spindle here that spins faster than the previous one. Beautiful. But it spins faster than the previous one, so I can also spin thinner on this one. And I have another style of drop spindling where this one is, it's kind of like a hybrid between a spinning wheel where you have a bobbin and then you have the shaft for a drop spindle, so you can spin on here. You spin the same way you would with the drop spindle, so I'll show you that on this. This is the most common one you'll see. And with drop spindling, I like to take smaller strips, so I don't like to spin with big clumps of fiber. I like to have smaller strips of fiber to start out with. And same with, I would do with the spinning wheel is what I would do with the drop spindle, where I would have a leader. And this one I've already spun some yarn on here, so you won't see the leader. But you'll want to pick one direction that you're spinning and continue in that direction every time you spin. So I am spinning clockwise, so it's turning this way. And the twist starts to go from, it starts to work from here and up to my hand up top here. So let's see if I can do this in the frame here. I'm twisting, so it's spinning a little bit out of the frame, but the drafting is the same. But you're using one hand to draft. Oops. One hand is pulling back. The other hand is twisting when the spindle starts to slow down. So this is what this one looks like. I'm actually pulling up, allowing the twist to go up. And there's different drafts for this too. And then this is what the yarn looks like when you're doing this on a drop spindle. Now I decided to learn to drop spindle after spinning on the wheel because I didn't get the hang of it right away. Some people learn the drop spindle first and then they learn on the wheel. It really depends on the person, but they're both very similar, except you're just, with this one, obviously you don't have to use your feet. So if you have foot problems or anything like that, this would be a great option for that alone. Also, with spinning wheels, there are e-spinners available where you do not have to use your feet. It's an electronics spinner, so you would need some sort of power source, but all you would have to do is feed the fiber into the e-spinner. So you have something that looks similar to this, and you're just allowing the fiber to go right into the orifice. And you don't have to worry about your feet moving, unless you have some sort of foot pedal that you want to use to start and stop it. But other than that, the drop spindle is very easy to take with you when you go places. So you can't take your spinning wheel everywhere. The drop spindle you can take in the car with you and you could spin. I wouldn't recommend while you're driving, obviously, but you could spin the passenger. Trying to think what else. With the supported spindle, you actually spin out of a bowl. So you would have what looks just similar to this, but it would be that your yarn, you would wind your yarn onto the bottom part of the shaft. You would spin the top, and it would be similar to spinning off of the Sharka that I pictured or had shown you all the picture before. So you would be spinning off the tip of the shaft from the top, and the bowl will keep it in place and keep it spinning. So there are different types of spindles available, but this one is probably the most common for people who are starting out for the first time. The drop spindle is. Any questions on the spinning wheel or drop spindle demo? You guys are good. Like, no questions.
It seems to me the most challenging part would be getting the right amount of wool in the spinning so there's consistency.
Yes.
How do you, I mean, is that the hardest part?
For which one, the wheel or the spindle? Because they are a little different when it comes to consistency.
Either one.
Okay, well, with the spinning wheel, and it has more to do with your hands, your placement of your hands for your drafting. So if your drafting distance is where you want to look at if you're having an issue with consistency. So if you're having thin spots, there's a chance that you're drafting too far back or too far forward, depending on which draft you're doing. So the different fibers have different staple lengths. So if I were to pull this, see if I can pull this until I can't pull it anymore. So until it's taut, this will tell me how long this staple length is. If my drafting is from here and it's past this length, that means that it's going to develop a thin spot where it pulls like that. And down at the bottom, you're going to get a thin spot right where you draft past. So if you take your fiber, whatever fiber you have, and do what I just did here, where you're just pulling it until you can't pull anymore and it won't pull like that, and make sure you don't go over that every time you draft. And that takes a lot of diligence there and a lot of practice and focusing on in that area. But that's where I find most students have the most trouble, is finding where that area is. So if you are drafting past that, you're going to get a thin spot. If you're drafting below that, you will not. So if you draft half of that, you're okay. If you draft a third of it, you're fine. If you draft 3/4 of it, you're fine, but you're getting closer to that thin spot. So you want to make sure you're away from where it starts to drift. That makes sense. It's the same thing with drop when you're using a drop spindle, but it's not as easy to feel with the drop spindle as it would be to feel it with the wheel. Because with the drop spindle, the twist is going up, and with the wheel, you are allowing the twist to come towards you. So it's coming towards your hands. And so it's a little bit easier to stop the wheel before it, as opposed to stopping the drop spindle, for instance, to change that draft. So if you have a wheel and you're doing it, I would practice it on the wheel first and then try it with the drop spindle.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're very welcome. That is one of the questions I normally get at festivals. How do you spin consistently? That is the answer. It's just practicing the consistent draft and making sure the draft is the appropriate draft for the fiber type. If I were using, this is Shetland, and that draft, my draft for that would be shorter than it would be for something like Wensleydale wool, which is a breed of sheep, for those that might not know what Wensleydale is. Wensleydale can be very long. It could be 6 inches. So instead of having my hands up close how they were here, my hands could be further back. So my hand could hold the fiber all the way back here, and I can draft all the way forward like that. So it really does depend on the fiber type. Now, if this were cotton, my hands will have to be much closer, which is why most people don't spin cotton on some of their spinning wheels. They would prefer to use something similar to a supported spindle, or it's a type of supported spindle called a Tockley. And you could use something like that, or you could also use the Sharka or the Great Wheel, which will put enough twist in there to hold the fibers together. So your fingers don't have to be this close together. And the drafting is different for cotton. You would use a long draw draft more so than a short forward like I showed here. So doing a short forward with cotton is possible. It's just not as comfortable to do. And you can do a long draw draft. I guess I can see if I can demonstrate that really quick. What a long draw draft is good for is when you want an airy yarn. You want your yarn to be lofty and airy, and it's usually really good for fibers that are prepped, that are roving, that are really disorganized. So it's not normally used for commercial comb top, but you can do it with commercial comb top if you like. And there's not a lot of twist in here. Let's see if I can get this going. See here. All right, so with long draw, you can take the comb top and you can actually fold it in half. You don't have to do it this way, but you can. You take the fiber like this and fold it over your finger, like that, and then you can spin. So, let's see if I can do it with this hand so you can see what I'm doing, hopefully. Let me get this started. Hold on. Make sure it's on here. I'm changing this a little bit because I usually want to do this on this flyer. So I have to change my settings to make sure it won't be difficult to do. All right, so instead of pitching forward like I did earlier, so I was pinching forward like this, like that, what you would do is allow the twist to build into your fiber, and then you will pull your hand. Your back hand is moving back, and you allow the twist to go into what is a triangle here. So you'd be pulling backwards. Like that. I apologize, my neighbor's dog is outside. Hopefully you hear that too much. I'm trying to help it in a little bit, but you could just keep pulling back. But you're allowing the twist to go to help you here. So you don't have to use this hand at all, really, if you don't want, but you can if you'd like. You can use it and pinch and pull. You're going to have this hand pretty much control the twist in front, because as you are pinching, it's keeping the twist that's coming from the wheel here from entering in here until you're ready for it. So you can do it that way. There's just two different ways to do it. But this works really well for cotton because you don't need this other hand to pinch really close and tight. You just allow the twist to build and you just move your fingers backwards until you're done with your fiber. And then you attach more at the end. That's long draw, which is nice. It's fun too. It's a fun little trick to show little kids. Any other questions? There are no other questions. I'll go ahead and I guess end off with some of the things that I have done. I have not only have I taught with some of the different companies such as Stitches, events, I also am I'm planning to teach with Flyaway, and that one is a big fiber show that is in Kansas City, Missouri. And then I'm also scheduled to teach with Stitches for Stitches Midwest, and they have postponed their event until September because of everything that's happening right now, and that one is still, you know, up in the air at the moment, but they are that is what they have planned for now, and they're going to keep us updated as far as what's going on with our state and where we are with everything with COVID-19. Also, Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, the plan was to teach with them this year, and they are rescheduling for next year, and they're going to let us know what those plans are for that, but that is the plan, is to have, for me to be there next year for Maryland Sheep and Wool also. Let's see, oh, outside of all of this and teaching, I also write a lot. So I write articles for Spin-Off Magazine. I have written an article for the winter 2020 edition for this past winter. And I talk about wild silk and what it looks like, what it feels like, what it's like to spin with it, and the natural colors that are involved with wild silk in comparison to mulberry silk, what most people are used to using. And I also talk about how you blend it and how you spin it. So I am in that particular issue from winter 2020, and my yarn is also on the cover for that, which is pretty cool. It was the first time, and it's pretty neat. But I also have other articles that I have written with Tiny Studio Creative Life magazine, which is based in New Zealand. I am in their issue for number 5, 6, 7, and their upcoming issue. I have a series that I am doing with them where I am going through the entire process for working from a fleece that comes right off of the sheep and then turning it into a sweater that I'm designing. So I'm in the process of doing another article for them with that. And I'm also writing an article currently for Ply magazine, and this is for the basics issue. So in between the teaching, I'm repairing wheels, writing, dyeing fibers, and I sell some of my dyed fibers online. But other than that, that's pretty much what I do, and I enjoy it all. I really appreciate that you all have given me the time to share that with you tonight. It's a lot of fun.
We appreciate you sharing it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So you get the wool from farmers nearby. Where do you get cotton or silk? Like mail order or?
Cotton and silk. There are different companies that sell large batches of cotton and silk. I have received some from a local fiber shop. The same fiber shop that I purchased my wheel from is where I have received brown cotton from. And she gets her brown cotton from a cotton farmer in Louisiana that pretty much specializes in growing brown cotton. So yeah, it's available here. So you don't necessarily have to like search really far for some of those things if you're in the state. But you can find them in other fiber shops outside of the state as well. And there are larger mills that also carry cotton too. So you can find it there. And same thing as far as silk is concerned.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Are there local classes you would recommend for spinning?
Let's see. I always recommend that if you can, come to a guild meeting, because guild meeting members are so helpful when you want to check it out for the very first time. And for me, I felt like that was like the place to start almost, as opposed to taking an official class. And the reason why I say that is because with the class, at least with the spinning wheel, you need a spinning wheel first before you go to a class. So if you don't have one just yet and you want to know more about the spinning wheels and things, a spinning guild is your best bet, because a lot of members will allow you to try their wheel for the first time. We're very friendly. We always welcome, people to come in and say, hey, you want to try it? And then if you decide, it might be something you'll like, then you might want to go that route into looking into classes. I cannot say that I know a lot of instructors that are teaching, at least not now, with the COVID-19 thing in person. I have offered to do what I call like one-on-one sessions for spinning. But yeah, obviously not now this time. But I believe there is a shop in, I'm going to say it's Big Rock. It's Esther's place. She also teaches people how to spin at her shop. And I want to say that Tony does too at the Fold. So those are two, places in Illinois that I know for sure will teach. So I would definitely ask them though, as far as, their availability and when they'll start again.
Is there a website for the guild that you could look up?
The guild, yeah, if you type in, let me see if I make sure I don't mess this up. I probably can put this in the, let's see. I want to say it's IPP, I think it's ips.chicagolandspins.org. It's kind of long. You can type in Illinois Prairie Spinners into a search engine and you'll find, yeah, Illinois Prairie Spinners Guild, and you'll find it. Any other questions? I think we're good.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Demonstration.
You're welcome. Very welcome.
It's sort of a lost art, don't you think? I mean, are there a lot of members of your guild?
I would say that our guild probably has the larger number of the guilds that I am aware of in Illinois. I think to date that we have probably 30 plus members, and for spinning, that is kind of a lot for for spinning.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily a dying art, because it seems that there are more people inclined to learn to spin over the last few years.
Oh, that's great.
It's been a huge spike in the interest for spinning, which is pretty cool to see. It's really nice to see that.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. So it's wonderful. But other than that, that's really it for the presentation, unless you guys have any more questions about anything. All right, Jen, Paul.
Hey, thank you so much. Sorry, I had to walk away for a second. Thank you so much for